Have you ever struggled with a door? You know, like when you're supposed to push, but you pulled, or vice versa. Have you ever stopped to think about exit doors? In particular, the ones with the crash bars or the push bars. Today, we're going to dive into the tragic yet impactful stories of fire safety, and at a higher level, the design and invention of the fire safety door. But first, my name's Erin Essex. I am a UX designer at YouTube. I also teach UX classes part-time. I am a bit obsessed with history, specifically design history. And it was a question I actually got while teaching that inspired this series. In the class, we were talking about Don Norman and the design of everyday things, particularly about door design, when one of the students asked me, "What do you think the history is behind the push bar door?" To which I said, I really don't know, but I bet it's a tragic story. So here's that story. This story begins in Sunderland, England in 1883. Imagine a crowded theater filled with children watching a magic show by a duo called the Fays. The show advertised that there would be a prize giveaway and that each child had the opportunity to win a prize, a toy, or a book. Well, the prize giveaway, which was supposed to be for certain ticket holders upon exiting, turned into a toy toss to the children in the orchestra pit section at the bottom. And this naturally started a frenzy for all the children seated in the balcony or dress circle area. They began rushing down to the pit to have a chance at the prize. And here was the fatal flaw. The theater was set up in a way where people seated in the upper sections were blocked as they started to run down to the lower section. This was due to a door that was partially bolted in an open position, leaving a small gap where the children could run through. This bottleneck quickly became a death trap as the onrush of children converged. Children tripped and their bodies started to stack as children in the back pushed forward. Additionally, this squeeze happened at the bottom of a stairwell, making it even more deadly. In the crush, 183 children lost their lives. Following the events of the Victoria Hall disaster in Sunderland, the British government began legal moves to enforce a minimum standard for building safety. This slowly led to a legal requirement that venues must have a minimum number of outward opening doors as well as locks which could be opened from the inside. It was 9 years later that Robert Alexander Briggs invented the panic bolt, which was granted a UK patent on August 13, 1892, a device designed to unlock and open a door with a single push. No knobs, no pulling, no ambiguity. It was a brilliant example of user-centered design. But sadly, there was more tragedy ahead before this door design was more widely adopted globally. For that part of the story, we go forward 20 years to Chicago in 1903. The Iroquois Theater was advertised as absolutely fireproof, but it was anything but. During a packed matinee performance, a stage light sparked a fire. The exits? They were blocked, they were locked, or patrons were met with fake doors put in for aesthetic purposes. Not only that, there were no fire exit signs because the lead architect didn't like the way that they looked. And for some that did find the fire exit, they found themselves on a fire escape that was way too narrow and not finished, some of them falling to their deaths. Additionally, patrons that were on the balcony or mezzanine area were further trapped by locked gates. These gates were put in to prevent what's called gate crashers when people try to move from the upper level seating to the lower level seating during a show. These gates further trapped people inside. By the time the fire was extinguished, over 600 people lost their lives, making it the deadliest single building fire in U.S. history. This disaster finally started to put safety measures for doors into motion. Now, you remember that door design that Robert Alexander Briggs designed in 1892? Well, it was finally gaining traction, especially after the Iroquois disaster, but there were several more fires that happened before it was more widely adopted. The crash bar is a really good example of an intuitive, human-centered design. There is no ambiguity to it. There are no instructions needed. You go to the door, you push it, you go through. Furthermore, in the case of an emergency where people are being shoved toward the door, the only thing the door can really do is open. So maybe the next time you see a crash bar door, you'll recall the history behind its invention and appreciate that it's there. I certainly know I do. If you appreciated this deep dive into design history, please let me know in the comments, or let me know what details you thought were interesting, or if I got something wrong, I would love to hear that as well. I am trying out this new series of design history and also a series that's called UX in Real Life. So I would love to crowdsource any ideas that you have. So please let me know that in the comments as well. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.